Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and we are super excited about this. Somebody that is connected to somebody that I consider to be a leader in my life, a mentor in my life, so I'm excited to hear his perspective about Zig Ziglar, because that is that's a pretty unique person. I saw Ziglar speak at a success seminar in Boise, Idaho. I think I was like 12 or 13 years old. It was a long time ago for me. Yeah. So it's been a while, and he's gone. He's not with us anymore that I'm aware of. So it's cool. It'll be fun to have that conversation. But this is Scott Reib, and he is a small business lawyer, attorney, legal counsel person. So I'm not just want to be clear here. I have no ability to recommend him. I don't use his services. So just if you heard it on this podcast, it's not because Sam said you should use him. You should do your research. Okay. I'm not throwing him out of the bus. He's going to be great, but just for my own compliance purposes, there's none of that going on here. But I am excited to hear about his legacy, why he does what he does, and where he's going. So he worked at a small business Ziglar legacy certified trainer. So crazy, has over 20 years of experience and spent the last 2 decades helping business owners, entrepreneurs, and coaches and service providers to shatterproof their business and succeed in the professional world. That is so crucial because you can get sued for just about anything these days. Even if you think, how did they sue me? I was literally on dealing with a client who does clothing. I have no idea. And I have created this nice little brand for myself, my logo. And apparently, if I tried to get it trademarked, it would be like Adidas would come cease and desist me. And I was like, what? I created this out of my own mind. No, not allowed. So anyways, there's things like that you just don't even know are a problem until somebody shows up on your door with a nice set of papers that you have to deal with. So that's good news for me. I guess I get to change some things around here. But that's what we talk about this. That's why I'm excited to talk about this with Scott. But go ahead and share with us how you got into what you're doing now, why you love it so much. I mean, 20 years is a long time to do anything. And so how'd you get in, why you're here, and where are you going?
You know, my journey really started in 91 when I got my first job out of college selling phone systems. And I was not an employee. I was an independent consultant for Major Telecom in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I was selling aftermarket phone things, selling extended warranties. I was making, for 91, very good money, more than I had really thought I would make at that age. And the company breached my agreement and threw me out to pasture. And so that threw me to a law office where I asked for some legal advice and quickly figured out that I couldn't afford to do anything about it. So I did what every normal person would do. I went to law school. I'm pretty sure that's what everyone does when they have a legal problem. So I went to law school, went to OU Law, had a great 3 years of learning how to think differently. But I still had that entrepreneurial spirit. And then as I started my journey, I've been an owner of every firm that I've been a part of over the last 25 years. And eventually got my very own, where I was the only, it's a solo practice. It was me. We formed the Reib firm, PLLC, in February of 2005. And the rest was history. I thought I would just do litigation, normal lawyer stuff. But it really didn't, it wasn't satisfying because my clients kept getting in trouble and they'd have the same kind of problems over and over again. And it just didn't make sense to me. Why weren't they calling me and asking me to review their contract before they signed it. Why weren't they asking me my advice before they designed a logo for their cool hat? They weren't. And the reason they weren't is because I was expensive. And I was expensive by every 6 minutes I was charging them if they called me or asked me a question. So instead of having money fly out of their pocket, they're like, I'll just Google it. I'll dial a friend. I'll do anything but call Scott because that's going to cost me money. So I hired my first business coach in 2007. 2012, and started working on this problem. And what we created was a subscription model to deliver legal services like Fortune 500 companies have to small business people and entrepreneurs. And so now we operate in a totally different way. I still have to do some litigation, but very little. And what I do is focus on helping business owners and entrepreneurs shatterproof their business so that they have what I call profits that will last. I want to help them build a legacy so that their business can be passed down to the next generation, whether it's family or part of their team, so that it goes on beyond them. And we do everything we can to minimize any kind of problems that they're going to have from a legal perspective. So that's how I got there, and that's what I do.
Awesome. So what was the we're going to jump around here, I'm sure. Yeah. But you're right that every normal person would definitely go to law school if they needed help with it. That's what every normal person does. Actually not the case, but why not though? I mean, I think that almost to how do I say this? To a fault, right? Because, and this is what's crazy. This is what's crazy to me. How long was law school? What year did you start law school, and how long was law school?
It was 3 years. I started in the fall of 93 and got out in May of 96.
Okay. So you took until from 96 to 2012 before you hired a business coach?
Yep.
Okay. So that's what, 12 plus 4, 16 years. That right. Is criminal. The fact that we're allowing people to go, I mean, we consider in society in America, lawyers, although they're the scum of the earth, right? They're also like one of the top professions. Okay. So I'm not intending to throw you under the bus, but that's like a lot of people think that. So even though it's not true, and lawyers are actually should be your best friends to some degree. That's the crazy part, that for 16 years, he went to school, got this great profession, got a degree, didn't know how to run a business. Okay. And you can fight me on that, but I think if you were struggling that long and people couldn't figure out why people weren't calling you, then you didn't know how to run a business. Right. And that's not to be rude. I think that's awesome that you finally got the help to run a business that was going to help you launch your business. So I'm curious, I see you're responding physically. So
yeah, it wasn't that I didn't have business. It was just that it was repeat business with the same problems. And I wasn't really helping them. We weren't being proactive with their business health. We were just solving the same symptom over and over again.
Okay. So no, this is great. So what about solving the same symptom over and over again? How is that different now than it was before?
Well, now I talk to our clients every month for 30 minutes. We're focusing on what's going on with their business so I can see it from a different perspective and help prevent them from making bad mistakes and help them make some good decisions, like let's trademark our logo, let's tighten up our contract on these terms because you just dealt with this customer and had this issue. And so we're able to proactively create their business structure and systems in a way that alleviates a lot of the big problems and minimizes some of them. And the idea is of shatterproofing the businesses. It hits you in the windshield of your business vehicle, marks it. We can fix it later. It doesn't come through and hit you in the face. And so now my clients like to talk to me. We'll talk for 30 minutes at a time. They'll call me multiple times per week, per month, because they know they've already got a set monthly fee. It's not going to cost them more money to pick my brain. And so now they have the ability to ask any question they want to ask and not worry about it costing them money. And so they do. And so now they have a totally different paradigm as to what lawyers are. And so now they can make better decisions. I like to say you have to have the right information at the right time in order to be successful. Well, people couldn't afford to have it the traditional way where you paid a big retainer and paid by the hour or by the minute. Now they can. And so now we help entrepreneurs and small business owners every day be proactive. We're now the primary care instead of the emergency room.
I love it.
It did take a business coach to come up with a delivery system because I couldn't figure out how to package it, because all I knew how to do was practice law. I mean, and do some basic accounting and marketing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it's not just true of lawyers. It's true of, in my experience, a lot of dentists, doctors,
Yes.
Healthcare providers in general. Anything that's really a licensed profession, you get so trained in how to do what you're doing, also how to not get sued for most people. Or I don't even know if they really teach you how not to get sued. I shouldn't say that. They really teach you how not to go to jail for the most part in the licensing courses that I've taken. It's not really teaching you how to be a good business owner. It's like, here's all the ways you can go to jail. I have to make sure that I told you this before I gave you a license, so I can throw you in jail if you do it wrong. That's basically a licensing practice of most. I'm going to get crucified for saying this, but anyways, to scratch everything I just said, but you get it, right? So because of that, you can be really great at your craft, but not know how to join your craft or even share your craft. And I think that's huge, because specifically when it comes to legacy, you could be great at who you are or what you're doing, your core values, the way you live your life, all that. But if you don't know how to share that, and one of my favorite examples are, do you know who at least 3 of the founders of the country were, of America? Probably, because they're on all of our money. Okay.
Right.
Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, George Washington, and Benjamin Franklin. I mean, at least 3 of them, pretty much. Okay.
On Hancock. Yeah.
3 or 4 of them. But do you know whose faces are on Mount Rushmore? And even more importantly, do you know the 2 brothers' names of who carved Mount Rushmore?
I do not know that.
Most people don't. Why? Because they sucked at marketing. They found the most godforsaken place in America, and they went up on a mountain that's hidden from everybody, decided to carve 4 giant faces on the side of it and not tell a single soul. And that's probably being way over the top critical of it. But the reality is, you have to go research that, because it's not common knowledge, because they didn't do it. Do you know who sent a Tesla to orbit the Earth?
No.
Elon Musk. Okay, Elon Musk did. He sent his own Tesla to orbit the Earth. Why? For the heck of it, right? So that he could say, I sent a Tesla to orbit the Earth. But that's the thing. Are you doing something, and are you sharing it widely enough that people know? And are you confident that if you do share it, you won't get sued? So let's go a little bit more into this. But first, how did you get hooked up with Zig Ziglar? Like, what's the story of you becoming a Zig Ziglar official Zig Ziglar small business lawyer?
Yeah, I decided to go to law school because I had a problem. I decided I wanted to work with speakers, trainers, and coaches in my access program. So I hired a coach that was teaching a certification program in how to be the lawyer for speakers, trainers, and coaches. My assignment after the big mastermind event was to go to a live event. I live in the Dallas, Texas area. Ziglar is the name. And so I Googled it, scheduled it, went to Houston to see them, showed up at the event, loved it. And right in the middle of nowhere outside of Houston, there was nowhere close to the hotel to eat. I'm talking to the front desk, and Tom's partner of the event, Howard Partridge, says, hey, do you need some help going to lunch? I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. He goes, well, ride with me. I'm going to meet with some of my coaching clients. On the way back, he's like, how are you getting to the airport? I'm like, I guess I call a cab that brought me here. He's like, no, Tom Ziglar will take you. I'm like, Tom Ziglar's going to take me to the airport? He's like, sure. So Tom walks in. He says, hey, Tom, you're taking Scott to the airport. So I get to spend an hour and a half in Houston traffic with Tom Ziglar while we're going to get on our planes. And during that conversation, I get to tell him all about what I do. And he poured in tons of wisdom to me. It was a very surreal experience. As soon as we split up, I called my dad, and you're not going to believe what just happened. Within about a month from that, I was at Ziglar headquarters meeting people, and they set me up with a lunch appointment with Tom, and I pitched him my access plan. And the way I did it was I just said, man, Tom, you're the leadership and sales guru. Can I just show you my sales presentation, and you just give me some feedback? And so I did my sales presentation and said, is there any reason that you would not want to do business with me? And now they became Access clients, and I became the official small business lawyer for Ziglar Inc.
Dude, that question is money. I use it with almost every one of my clients. Once it gets down to it, it's like, okay, based on what you've seen, as long as everything makes sense, is there any reason you wouldn't want to do business with me? You're inviting them to say no, so they feel like they got to say no, but really they're saying yes. It's freaking It's a killer close. I love it. That's so cool. So how long you've been working hand in hand with the Ziglar Foundation to do that, to be there?
Since 2013.
13. So it was like right after you hired your coach.
Yeah, very quickly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
They have live events. I speak at a lot of their events quarterly, do breakout sessions with people that attend. And then they've kind of helped me launch to other places and doing podcasts like this one. I also am a certified legacy trainer with Ziglar. So I went through their ZLC class, and so I can teach some of the Ziglar courses and help people figure out how to have the better life and how to create a life with lasting and with a legacy.
Mm-hmm. And he's a lawyer, so he knows how to make sure it's protected long term, hopefully. I mean, I know that there's lots of different types of lawyers and they all do different things. Yeah. Sort of. But they all have to pass the same bar, right? You don't go to a business law bar, do you?
That's crazy. No, yeah, you pass the same bar, but many lawyers only do very specialized things and are scared to try anything else. I've never been scared. And so I'll try new things. And so we made this shift. So I work with business owners, online, offline, brick and mortar. We help them set up their business structures, get all their systems right, help them create wills, trusts, LLCs, limited partnerships, and all the things they need to protect and then transition that stuff to the next generation. So we're kind of full service for the entrepreneur. Do a lot of online entrepreneur stuff. But it's really important that it's all structured in a way that makes it smooth. If something happens to the entrepreneur, it happens way too much where there's been no plan. Something suddenly happens, either become disability or death. Death is certain, folks, and there was no plan, and so the business goes bankrupt in almost no time because there was just no continuity plan. There was no succession plan. There was no one in charge. It's a real mess, and so that's what we spend our time doing, is helping them figure out, the path to getting to what we call shatterproof. So
I know you're focusing on business owners, but what's the value for somebody who's not necessarily a business owner? Yeah. There's somebody who's like, I want to make sure my life is in order, right? Because it's not just about the business. Obviously, the business, I think there's more potential things that you could step on as a business. But I also believe, and this is my personal opinion, from a tax perspective and a legal perspective, everybody should be running their daily life as a business. Like, I don't know why somebody isn't running a business in their life. Yeah. That's my personal opinion. And even if you're running your own W-2 income or whatever, if you're thinking as a CEO, then you're making decisions that are in the best interest of you and your family, and not letting other people walk over you. And I think that just the mindset of a business owner, we label it as business owner. I just think it's life, though. The mindset of how to operate efficiently in our world that we've created for ourselves needs these skills as well, just as much or maybe more. So what are some, how does it apply to just the everyday person that thinks, oh, I'm not a business owner? They've already tuned out because they think we're talking about law for business owners, and we're not. We're talking about legal protection and continuity and stuff across the board. How does that conversation go?
Yeah, I love the way you said that. Yeah, you're basically the CEO of your household or your family. Maybe you have a COO too, but someone has to be in charge of it, and you need to run it just like you would a regular business, so that you have budgets and you've got systems in place for how you take care of the bills and who gets the groceries and how does the house get clean and who mows the yard. You need to have all that planned out. And then you get to the next level, and it's like, okay, how am I going to pay for retirement? Right? You got to fund your retirement, so we need to have that plan. And then what if something happens to me and I become disabled? Well, then we have to have contingency plans for that, and that's estate planning. And then we have to have the plan for what happens when I die, because it's the one thing that God guarantees us will happen, is that we will die. And so we have to have that plan in place if we're going to be legacy focused. You'll leave a legacy either way. You'll be infamous instead of famous. If you leave your family in a lurch, that's the worst possible thing, right? You're like, You don't want to do that. So you have to do some planning. Most people don't plan to fail. Most people fail to plan. And so don't be like that. Get with an access lawyer that can help you figure this stuff out, help you create a plan. If money is an issue and coming up with a plan, that's okay. Find a lawyer that'll work with you on a budget plan or a payment plan so that you can get your legacy in order. And it's not like you come in one day and it's done the next. You have to do some work. You have to do some soul searching. Like, a very tough question is, who's going to take care of your kids? If you don't have guardians appointed for your kids, the court and the state has a plan for you, and you may not like it. So you need to seek out this counsel from me, from some other lawyer that's in your area, and make sure that you know that you have a plan in place that's not going to leave your family in a lurch, and that is going to let you have a good legacy of providing for your family in the future. And so the hard work that you're doing now at your W-2 job can pay off and go into the future. And right now, Sam, almost everyone has a side hustle. I mean, if you go on TikTok, all you hear about is side hustles. If you don't have one and you're listening to us, it's easy. You should find one, because I hear W-2 jobs aren't all that stable. And you might want to have something in the wings that's generating a little revenue so that you could ramp it up if you needed to. And if not, it can help you pay for college, retirement, vacations. It's just too easy. And once you figure out some of these skills on how to put a plan together, how to put a budget together, it all works in business. It all works at your house. It's really everyone kind of has the same problems. Business owners may have bigger problems, but you could also just be a very wealthy W-2 individual and have some big problems. But again, don't be the person that fails to plan. That's
okay. So I want to ask something that's super controversial, and I always get pushback when I say it. And I'm like, you know what? I still defend my statement. But I'm curious from a lawyer's perspective, how you'd answer this, right? Because I think when you go into a business contract with somebody, you ideally have contingencies or exit strategies built into the contract. So, hey, if XYZ doesn't happen, this person's out. If they're not performing, this person's out. If this doesn't happen, this person's out. If they try and vote me out, I've got a super vote, so I win and I fire their butts, right? So like whatever, right? So there are contingencies built into good business contracts, right? Not every business contract has all the contingencies in it, but ideally, you met with a good lawyer, and the lawyer made sure that you were protecting your business. There was exit strategies in place from the beginning. Worst case scenario, and lawyers get paid to think in worst case scenario. I think it's the most depressing job. But I mean, I've never been a lawyer, right? But I hate when somebody's like, "Well, this is worst case scenario, so we have to protect you." I'm like, I don't even think about the worst case scenario. It's not on my mind. But I'm glad it's on yours, because otherwise I'd get screwed sometime when somebody effectuates the worst case scenario in my life. So, but this is their job, is to think through this and help you avoid the worst case scenario. But a good business strategy, would you agree that a good business contract begins by isolating most of those and eliminating as many possible worst case scenario as possible?
Definitely. Yeah. And just having a business contract eliminates a lot of worst case scenarios, but you could have a bad contract too. And so, yeah, there's about 8 to 10 things that we look for in each contract to make sure they're in there. We try to make it fair contracts. We aren't trying to do contracts that have got gotchas in them, but you want to have a way for each party to get out of the contract if it's a bad deal. And it needs to be really clear how that happens. And you need to be thinking about that in advance. Because if you don't, then the deal will be bad. And this is even more important. If we're talking about people that aren't in business, you're still signing contracts all the time if you're just running a household. And sometimes it's with friends, right? You've got some kind of a deal going with a friend. The closer you are to the person, the more important it is to have it in writing, because if the relationship's important, you need to have something that you can tag and go, this is what we said. It's right here in writing. I'm not making this up. It's right here. Otherwise, you're left calling your friend a liar, and that's a horrible place to be. Instead, you want to be going, help. Let's remember together what we signed. And so it's just so important to have that stuff in writing.
So here comes the controversial statement. Okay.
Okay.
I think that the biggest financial contract that most humans are going to sign and is the most misunderstood contract is a marriage contract. I think that solely, I mean, we're witnessing it in real time, whether it's a publicity stunt or not. Half some of the wealthiest people in the world that we know of, half their wealth, because they didn't have prenups in order. And people are like, you can't, why would you go into a marriage planning the end of it? I'm like, I'm not planning the end of it. I'm making sure that if it ends well. That's all I'm doing, right? It's not planning the end of my marriage. A prenup is not planning the end of your marriage. It's saying that if things go south, this is how we both agreed to this in the beginning. There's a big difference between planning the end of a marriage and being clear about what would end a marriage and how it would end, in my opinion. So I'm curious from a lawyer's perspective, because as you said, the people you're closest to, you need those are the most specific contracts. I don't know anybody you're closer to than your dang spouse. So I want to hear you talk to that a little bit, because I get railed on this, and I also do contracts with my siblings. So if I'm borrowing even $1,000 or something, there's a contract, there's interest applied. Like there's clear payback terms. We keep a schedule. Like everything is very clear between family members. In my family, just because that's how I was raised, which I'm grateful for. But I didn't think about it before I got married, prenups, and so I don't have any prenups. But I just think, man, this should have been something that every human should have thought about. This should be like a pre-marriage class that you're not allowed to get a marriage license until you have gone through an education class. And if you choose not to have prenups, that's your own deal. But at least you were told you should have had some. Anyways, that's my opinion. What's yours? I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think everyone has to have a prenup, but I think they are a very useful tool, especially if someone is a small business owner, has some things going that they think could grow, or that if things went south, they would want to keep and not have it entangled. And so there is some smart planning that can happen there, and we do that quite often for our clients, business owners and non-business owners. But I get that too. A lot of, well, you're just by bringing that up, then you're basically bringing doubt into this whole thing, and that you think the marriage isn't going to work. And there's nothing further than the truth. It's just someone being a smart business person. I mean, the Bible says, be wise, innocent as a dove and wise as a serpent. So you've got to be on guard before you enter into this important relationship, especially if you have something to lose. Now, if you have nothing when you go in, like I did and my wife did, we've built everything together. It's not quite as important then. But if you're maybe getting married a little later in life and you've each got your own stuff, then do some planning so that if this thing doesn't work out, that you've at least got not an exit strategy, but you have a document that says what happens to our assets if one of us wants out. Because in most states, if one person wants out, you can't stop them. You can't keep them married to you. So you might as well have a plan for what happens to your stuff if that happens. I do agree with you that it's very controversial, though. And most people think that you're dooming the marriage if you start bringing up prenups, or that my fiance, if you would run from me if I brought that up. And they shouldn't. If they trust you, they should think that you have their best interest at heart, and a prenup should be fair to both of you. Sure. It's just a written plan for what happens if this thing goes south, when we know that 50+% of marriages don't work out. So yeah, it's a pretty wise thing to do if you have something to lose.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why so many people fight me on it, honestly. I'm just like, I don't get it. I really don't get why you're fighting it, because it just makes sense to me, but it is controversial. That is for sure.
It's not very romantic. That's all I know.
Well, yeah, you can follow it. You can grow into love with anybody, but if it's somebody that like is going to take your everything, I'm just like, geez, I don't know. A lot of people who are getting their second and third marriages, though, they figured it out. Yes. After their first one where they go broke getting divorced, they're like, oh, okay, maybe I need to do this different. I
think I'll just stick with this one.
Yeah, I have a friend he's a divorce attorney, and he says, how much is a divorce going to cost? And it's supposed to be a joke, right? But it's like one of those dark humor things. How long is the divorce going to take, and how much is it going to cost? And he says, it's going to take as long as it takes for the lawyers to get all your money. that's how long it's going to take. And that's how much it's going to cost. Everything. And as long as it takes to get it. And I'm like, oh, that's a dark humor. That's unfortunately more true than we want to admit to ourselves.
It is. Definitely is.
It's crazy. So I'm curious, what are some of the biggest pitfalls you see business owners like not protecting themselves from, and then getting into a pickle situation where they could have just had something simple?
Yeah, and you've already talked about one. Is most business owners are not using written contracts for a lot of what they do. Either with their customers, they may be using independent contractors. They're doing all that stuff with handshake deals, no paperwork, and that's a huge problem. And it's just a landmine, just waiting for you to step on it. The other thing they're not doing is they're not setting up their legal entities correctly, or they're just running as a sole proprietor with a DBA, and that exposes all of their personal assets to their business liability. And that's such an easy thing to fix. And so we see that a lot. And then the other one that we see a lot is on your hat, where we see people that are accidentally using other people's intellectual property. One of our 5 proven strategies in my book, the 5 proven strategies to shatterproof your business, is don't use other people's IP. It just happens. Like, you think you created something, but no, you really didn't, because you just saw it and it was in your brain, so you put it down. So you got to be really careful and get other eyes on your stuff. You can't use images right off of Google that you just find unless you got permission. Otherwise, you start getting cease and desist and demand letters in the mail that there's no defense to copyright infringement, folks. There really isn't. So you got to be careful to do that. And those are some major problems we see. And then another big one we see is people that actually are creating their own intellectual property and not protecting it. They're not registering their trademarks. They're not putting copyrights on their material, like they're doing online courses or they're doing books. They're not putting copyrights on them, and that's a big mistake. And you need to register it. If you don't register it, you can't enforce it. You may have some rights, but until you register it, you're really limited on what you can do to enforce your rights. So those are some really big mistakes I see people make. And kind of cap it off would be, and you've mentioned that when you said I should have hired a coach so much earlier, is people don't set up what I call a team of advisors. And that would include a coach. They need to have a lawyer. They need to have an accountant or a CPA. They need to have a good insurance person, and then they need to have a good banker. And if you kind of set up this board of advisors early in your business, then you have people to bounce all this stuff off of. And I see people running, they're just, they're lone wolfing it. And that's a problem. You can do a lot by yourself in this world now because of technology, but that doesn't mean you should, right? Going this alone is not a good idea. So you need to have a team around you. It doesn't have to be employees. It can be these advisors that's kind of this board for you. And I see a lot of people just not doing that. They just watch videos all day, figuring out how to do stuff. And you can learn a lot that way. I do too. But you need to have real people that care about you and your life, that are helping you protect this business you're building, because it's your legacy. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's so funny that because you did something that most people won't do, and people like you, I say, okay, well, come work with me then. Like when I meet with a client, they say, oh, well, I'll just go do it myself. Okay, for you to do it yourself, it's going to take you probably 3 or 4 years to become an expert in it, to be able to do it at the level I could do it. It's going to take you more time and money and stress and anxiety and everything than you actually want to spend. But let's be honest, if you're going to go through all of that to become an expert, you should come work with me, because we need good experts, right? So I'm always on the hunt for a good expert. So if you're going to go become expert, come work with me. We'll make sure you become an expert. Unless you want to become an expert, you probably should know enough to make an intelligent decision, but also trust an expert that they're going to do it right. Like, you need to know enough to know how to select the right expert for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But unless you really want to become the expert, you're not going to be the one sitting there doing everything, whether that's creating your copy, marketing, investing, insurance, lawyer, LegalZoom, whatever. There's a big gap between being able to do something and having it done well. And to become an expert is just generally not worth the time unless you love it. And if you want to become an expert, let's have a different conversation about working with us, not about me doing something to help you,
Right.
So that's fascinating. What I want to ask you what your price is monthly. mostly for myself. I don't know if you want to share that publicly or whatnot, or if you like to have that in a sales conversation.
Yeah, right now you can become an Access client for as little as $4.99 a month.
So for $500 a month, you get basically a half an hour a month call with you to get things set up, and then anything that you're doing on top of that, the client would cover all the cost of setting up the LLCs or the everything.
Correct. We do get the LLCs. We review all your contracts. You never sign a contract again that hadn't been reviewed. We create custom contracts for your business, for your customers, for your vendors, all that stuff, so that you don't have to worry about it. And then you have unlimited access to me and my team by email, text, and phone. And if you could think of something else, you could do Facebook Messenger or whatever, Instagram. I'd rather it be the other text phone. But you have unlimited access to me, so you could call us every day and ask us a question. No one does that. But we have to be able to call us a lot, because if your business is active, you may have a lot of questions, especially kind of we're in this weird era. It's kind of a new world out here with all the COVID stuff we've had to deal with. And so there's a lot of questions. And then if it's not included in the plan, then you get a 20% discount off of whatever it would be. If it's a trademark, if it's an estate plan, it's an asset protection plan, then we do flat fees. We're like other business owners where we actually quote you a fee. And if I'm wrong and it takes me more work to do it than I thought, then I'll lose money. If I can be efficient, I make money. It just seems fair that we should have to do that. Most lawyers don't. They just give you an hourly rate and it takes what it takes. And we don't work that way.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a fan of the just pay up front and then it's clear. I like clear amounts of money, even with my family. I have a brother-in-law who likes to do family gifts, which is fine. I don't mind family gifts. He's like, it's going to cost this much, we think. If it costs more, we'll ask for more money later. I'm like, no.
No.
You can have my share of the cost now, or you can tell me what the cost is later and I'll pay you more later. But I'm not going to have an open-ended tab for you to go spend my money. Potentially. No, thanks. Even I'll go spend thousands of dollars and not care. And then I'll care about $5 of stuff. And no, I just I don't like the feeling of open-ended stuff. I'd rather know than not know. So anyways, it's just funny. We probably spend more money than I need to, but I like it that way. I like certainty in certain respects. So that's awesome. So your legacy, what got you to start thinking about the legacy of your business, though, and going through the legacy training with Zig Ziglar? Was that always in your mind of something that you should be focusing on, or was it more of a protection model from the beginning, and then these other avenues kind of opened up how you saw what you were doing?
That's a great question, Sam. No one's asked that before. Yeah, it started out as protection. And then as we started working with more and more entrepreneurs, it became apparent that this was really about more than protection. It was about how do we go from where we are now to where we want to be, and then pass that on to someone else. Some people don't have family, so it was going to go to another employee in the business, and so it came later. And then I was the official lawyer for Ziglar for 5 years before I went through legacy certification training. It just started to make sense that I wanted to be able to give more than just legal advice and business coaching. I do business coaching because I've learned a lot. I needed to be able to give them more leadership and more how to build a better life, build a better family, better business from the Ziglar perspective. And so with that training, I'm able to pour a lot more in. I'll bring a whole client and their team into our world headquarters, and we'll do training in my facility to help them with goal setting, to help them with whatever their project is. We'll workshop it, help them through it, so that they can get on and build a business with legacy. Because if you don't do that, you mentioned earlier, and Gerber says it so well in his E-Myth Revisited. Otherwise you're a technician, and you'll always be a technician, and you'll never get to significant legacy. If all you can do is be a lawyer, you'll never get to legacy and significance. And so you either got to learn new skills, or you've got to build systems and bring in people that can follow your systems if you want to get to legacy. Otherwise, it's just a job, and it's probably the worst job in the world because you've got yourself for a boss and you're probably nuts. So don't do that. Build a business which is built on systems and automation and people that don't have to be highly skilled. They just have to be good people that can follow your systems. And if you do that, you'll be happy, they'll be happy, and it will lead to a business that can go on and be a legacy business, not one that just pops up one day and is gone the next.
And that's incredible. So I'm curious for you, that's the switch of selling, and I'm going to go really deep, really fast here. So just track it. But selling hope versus selling fear. What's been easier? Obviously, you changed your payment model, but do you think just changing your payment model to a subscription model, but still selling fear or protection, do you think you would be as successful, or do you think that while switching it to a subscription model, it was still necessary to change to selling hope rather than fear?
I still think I sell some fear because some people need to be motivated by fear. And so we still use examples of fear to drive people to us, right? There were 40 million lawsuits filed in the U.S. last year that had a cost of $300 billion to the U.S. small business owners. It's huge. You don't want to participate in that. And so that is, I mean, you should be afraid of that. But if you build the systems right, you can be much less afraid. And then once you've got that protection in place, then you kind of can take a deep breath, and now you can look clearly and see legacy. It's hard to see that until you've got the protection. So you've got to get the protection first. So we do still sell from a fear when we're selling the access protection plan. But when we're talking about estate planning, that kind of thing, yeah, then it's all about the hope for the future for our grandkids and their kids. And so it's a different conversation. But still, a lot of people, until they're scared enough to take action, they won't do anything. They'll just sit there and be happy in their muck. But once they're scared and they figure out there's something to lose, and the COVID-19 has been a motivating factor for a lot of people to get their house in order, and it wasn't hope, it was fear that did it. So yeah, I think hope is a strong motivating factor, and we do sell with hope also, but I honestly still think fear really drives most people are transacting.
Sure, I think fear is a driver. I just want, and I don't know your sales process, right? So that's why I'm asking, just to hear it. But
yeah,
is the, how do I say this? So I think they're selling fear, and then they're selling a transformation. And when you're selling a transformation, you're definitely talking about the pain or the fear aspect of it, but you're ending in the transformation. So I would still consider that selling hope rather than selling fear. Of course, you have to highlight the pain point and twist the knife a little bit, rub some salt in the wound. Like, you have to do that a little bit just so that there's some contrast. But really, the whole purpose is to guide somebody to recognize, hey, there is this pain point here that you were oblivious to, it wasn't on your radar. There is a pain point here, and we have a solution. Rather than, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to get sued. And in fact, now that I know that you're not doing this, I just may be the one who sues you unless you don't get it fixed by me. Like, there's people who sell that way. In fact, I did door-to-door sales, and there was a lawsuit because there were some sales reps. I sold pest control. There were some sales reps who their first hour in the day, this is so unethical, and I'm glad they went to jail, but their first hour of the day, they would take a syringe of honey or sugar water, and they would go spray honey or sugar water. They'd put some on everybody's doorstep in the neighborhood, and then they'd wait about 2 hours, and they would just go and knock every door, and then there would be bugs there, obviously. So they were like, hey, you see these bugs? And it was like instant, oh my gosh, I got to hire you. And they sold a lot, but it was super unethical. And so they ended up going to jail for it. So like, there's just different ways of selling. And I think a transformation is not necessarily fear. It's like, hey, these are some of the common mistakes that people have experienced. I'm so grateful and happy that I get to help people not experience them. That's a more hopeful message in my mind. Maybe I'm just gaslighting myself. I don't know. But I feel like it's more hopeful than just fear. So that's why I'm curious. Was it mostly fear? And do you still use just fear to sell some people?
No, it's not just fear. But our sales process points out the pain points and then shows you the solution, which is our access plan or estate planning, depending on what your problem is. But yeah, it's problem solution sales. And so we are, like I said, we are highlighting the fear points at the beginning, but we're showing them a way out of that through having a legal coaching plan.
So if I called your clients today and said, hey, why are you working with Scott? Why are you working with Access, whatever? Are they going to say, because I don't want to get da-da-da-da-da-da? Or are they going to say, man, it's been so great. Now I have everything in order. I've got systems and I know exactly where I'm headed and I'm not worried about anything in the future.
Yeah, they're going to say Scott's really awesome and I have peace of mind that he's got my back and I don't have to worry about it.
Okay. See, and that's the reason I'm asking this. I have like a hierarchy. And again, I've been told I should trademark this. It just hasn't been the time yet. So I need to trademark this probably at some point. But like my legacy structure that I help people focus on is a chiasm. And it starts with legacy. How do you want to be remembered? And then your core values, then what fulfills you. And then your faith, family, fitness, finance, fun. And then the top, like the capstone of the building is your results. And in a chiasm, they're supposed to start and end in the same spot and highlight the center is supposed to be the most important part, right? So the most important part is you're living a life that fulfills you, but there also needs to be an alignment. And if you're intentionally saying, this is how I want to be remembered, or in your case, this is how I want my clients to refer me, is, hey, I love having no stress. I love having everything buttoned down and taken care of. And Scott's awesome. He's always there for me. If that's the end result that you want, then you have to live in alignment of that, right? If somebody you think that that's what they're saying, but then I go and ask them and they say, well, I'm just so glad, like, I'm just scared of doing all this. So I pay them $500 a month just to make sure that I don't have these issues. Then the building is not in alignment, right? It's going to fall eventually because the results that you're getting aren't actually the legacy you're trying to build. And so that's why I asked that question, like, are they in alignment? And sounds like, according to you, you think they would be. I'd love to talk.
Some aren't. We lose a few every year, and generally, there's usually two things. One, I can look back sometimes and think I shouldn't have let them in. It wasn't a good fit, or they don't buy into the transformation and just want it for basically insurance purposes. And so eventually it becomes too expensive for insurance purposes, and they leave. If they're not invested in the transformation, they leave. And so, but there's always a few that come in because they are scared, and it's an inexpensive way to address those fears. And then if they don't buy into the transformation at some point, they're out.
Yeah. And I'm highlighting Scott's business right now for those of you listening, but this is everything. This is, how do you parent your children? How do you speak with and what's the relationship with your wife, your brothers, your sisters, your parents? Like, this thought process is in every aspect of your life. It's not just business. And that's why it's really easy to highlight in business, because generally in business, and this is crazy as well, but generally in business, people are entering these relationships with a much more clearly stated definition of outcome, whether they were successful or not. Most people, when they enter a marriage, they have no idea how they're going to define success in their marriage. They're just like, did we have kids? Are they alive? We're winning. Okay. Like, pretty freaking low bar, but we're winning. Health. Most people don't go into their health thinking, what's my defined benefit of outcome? Like, how am I going to determine success? And so the real highlight of this conversation should be, how are you determining success? What's your definition of success? And what systems and contracts do you have in place to guarantee that success?
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. This has been really enlightening. I'm so glad I had you on the podcast so I could learn. I'm excited to learn more about your services and see what that looks like for me. To be quite honest, my experience with lawyers is that of the similar as people who are like creative types, photographers, videographers, digital people. Like, they never get back to you, and like, they just operate on their time, and it's the most annoying thing. So I'd love to have a different opinion of lawyers, but as of right now, that's pretty much the opinion I have. And I don't know why they just do things on their own time. I'm like, everybody else, I've got deadlines in my business. Why is deadline just no longer exist in some people's organizations? I don't get it. I really don't understand it. But the thing is, I don't know anybody else to use. So it's like you just deal with their own standard of whatever or not. I don't know. So how have you fixed that in your business to where you're actually having regular, like, meeting deadlines?
Well, you have to have, standard operating procedures in your business that require you to, for instance, just, a simple thing that most business owners do wrong is they don't return phone calls. Well, the reason that's happening is they're allowing phone messages to be taken. In my business, we don't take phone messages. If someone calls and wants to talk to someone here, then they go on the calendar for a callback. It's not a message that someone can lose or not see. It's on the calendar and they get called back. If a task comes in, we use Asana right now for managing our tasks, and it goes in as a task. There's a deadline associated with it, and it's assigned to a person. And then we have a person that's responsible for daily going through Asana and making sure that all the deadlines are being met. But you have to have operating procedures, and you have to have people that know what their jobs are. That would be job descriptions, or you can call them all kinds of things, but key result positions, descriptions. But you have to have those things built in for them to work. And I do a lot more of that. We're talking about business and then family or individuals. I do a lot better at that at work, truthfully, than I do at home. If I had more systems, I would probably have even better kids than I have. And I have amazing kids. But when I see things that they're not doing, and they don't do what I want them to do, it's usually because I didn't give them a system to follow, a checklist to follow. If I had done that early in their lives, they probably would be doing that thing that they're not doing, like clean up their room.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Literally, as we were having this conversation, I'm like, well, I'm the CEO of my family and the CFO. My wife, I would say, is the COO, but what's my 4-year-old child? What C-suite executive is he? What's my 2-year-old child? Like, is he the chief, I don't know, cleaning officer? Like, what's his job? What am I going to say? Look, here's your budget, dude. Here's your time. You're in charge of it. How do I anyways, I like giving independence to people. So it's just interesting to think about that.
You just don't want your 2-year-old to be the CEO. I see that too often.
Yeah, no. I'm the CEO, and more like my wife and I combined are the CEOs, because I don't make really very many decisions without her. But I'm not the chief disciplinary officer, that's for sure. Because when it gets home, I'm like, look, this is my standard of discipline, but I don't got to spend all day with these kids. So, babe, that's your job. Like, I know what I would do, but I don't have to live with them all day. You do. So you get to decide. I will follow your disciplinary rules specifically. And if I have a disagreement, then we can have the conversation. But in the moment, it's your voice always trumps mine, because I don't have to deal with them every day. So
Sounds like a smart man.
Yeah, so it's good. So here's the legacy on rapid fire. 5 questions, 1 word, 1 sentence answers. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So what do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
I don't have the right team in place.
Okay. What's the hardest thing you've ever accomplished?
Law school.
And what's your greatest success to this point in your life?
I've raised 2 great young men. Luke's 19 and Jake's 22. They love God. They're responsible adults, and they're going to make a difference in the world.
Fantastic. And what is one secret habit, mindset, or behavior that you think contributes most to your success?
List making.
Fantastic. And what's 1 or 2 books you would recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
Yeah, The E-Myth Revisited. I mean, if you're not a business owner, it might not be great for you. And then The Ultimate Sales Machine. Book 2 that have changed everything that I do.
Awesome. Love both of those books. And this last question is, how do you want to be remembered, right? What's your legacy? Imagine 6 generations from now. So this is your great grandchildren sitting around the table, discussing your life, the impact you had, the legacy you left. What do you want them to be saying about your legacy 6 generations from now?
Yeah, I want them to be saying that Grandpa changed the way that law was practiced and the way legal services were delivered to empower small business owners to make decisions proactively about their business from a legal perspective and to build shatterproof businesses.
Awesome. Fantastic. I'm excited. We're going to chat after this for sure, but thank you so much for coming on, and we'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day.
Thanks, Sam. This is great.
Yep. Bye.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.